So in today's meeting, we'll go through an introduction to peer review, how to make an initial assessment, the peer review process in general, making recommendations, revisions and resubmissions, and then we'll go through some commonly asked questions. Next slide. But to start, I wanted to give you a bit of info about the British Ecological Society. So founded over a century ago, the BES was the first ecological society in the world that we know of. And we now have a community spanning 120 countries and have a strategic mission to find ecological solutions to a planet under threat. Next slide, please. So we have 7 society-owned journals, and hopefully you'll have heard of at least one of these. So we've got Journal of Animal Ecology, Journal of Ecology, Functional Ecology, Journal of Applied Ecology, Methods in Ecology and Evolution, People and Nature, and Ecological Solutions and Evidence, along with our grey literature platform, AER. So these are all owned by the BES and published by Wiley. So as society-owned journals, all the profit made from the journals goes back into the society and into ecology generally. So we pride ourselves, well, the journals pride themselves on having a thorough peer review. So we hope that you'll be able to help us maintain these standards. Each of the journal has an assistant editor. So that's me on Method in Ecology and Evolution. And your assistant editor probably has already contacted you, but this will be your main point of contact with the journal throughout your time as an editor. Next slide, please. So as an editor with the BES, you're entitled to free registration to the BES annual meeting, which if you're able to attend, I would really recommend. It's a lot of fun. You're also entitled to free membership to the BES in your first year and 50% off from then on. So there's a whole host of things you get from being a member, include joining a global network of ecologists, discounts on publishing with us, a free copy of our membership magazine quarterly, and access to the BES grants. Next slide. So we invest £500,000 every year into projects across the world through our members-only grants, and then more than half of this funding is ring-fenced for ecologists in the global south. Next slide. I would also recommend joining one of our BES community groups. So we have quite a few different networks for people with shared identities and ambitions, as well as special interest groups, which focus activities on specific areas of ecology, and run and organize events throughout the year. So I've listed them all here, but you can head to our website to find out more and look at signing up to their newsletter or joining if you want to. Next slide. So as an editor, your main responsibility will be, of course, handling manuscripts, which we'll run through in more detail in a second. But I also wanted to flag other ways to get involved in the journal. So each journal has its own blog, and we also have the BES podcasts, both of which are always looking for more content. So if you have any ideas of things that might be interesting or things that you want to get involved in, please flag these to the assistant editor. And then we also run special features on each journal. So these can either be on one specific journal or they can be cross-journal. So if you've got any ideas for special features or want to be involved in one, again, please reach out to your assistant editor. So that's everything from me. But I'll now be passing over to Nate, who will be running through an introduction to peer review. Thanks.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining the Zoom call. I'm Nate Sanders, University of Michigan, and I'm the executive editor of Journal of Animal Ecology. And I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of the process from this side of the desk. And so, as you know, you submit manuscripts and they go off into the ether, but then we snatch them out of the ether of Manuscript Central. And one of the assistant editors then decides what to do with that paper, which senior editor to assign it to. At Journal of Animal Ecology, there are 4 of us. We have 4 different areas of research, and so the assistant editor tries to figure out which one of us should handle the manuscript. Now, importantly, submissions are way up across all of the BES journals. For Animal Ecology, for example, we're up 45% in total submissions this year. In a typical year, we get about 1,000 submissions, and we anticipate getting around 1,500 or more submissions this year. And so with 1,500 submissions and 4 senior editors, that means that, we're handling about 400 manuscripts each. And so you have to be ruthlessly efficient when you get these manuscripts. So the first decision we make is whether or not to send it on to an associate editor. Um, for me, about 50% of the manuscripts I touch do not get sent on to associate editors. That varies a little bit among senior editors and among journals. And I should say the process I'm describing has slight variations among the journals as well. And so if we decide to send it on to an associate editor, we look at your keywords and area of experience and how many current manuscripts you're handling. If you're handling, 2 or 3 manuscripts, I won't send you another one. Um, and then once it arrives in your inbox, it's up to you to decide whether to send it out for further peer review. At least at Journal of Animal Ecology, one of the things we do is give the associate editor some guidance on the manuscript. So, I might say, here's another boring paper about ants. Am I missing anything exciting? And that helps the associate editor to look at the paper, with new eyes to see if there's something that might be exciting in the paper. So if you do decide to send it out for review, you'll hear lots of tips and tricks about how to get people to say yes to your emails. Once you get enough people to say yes to your emails, those comments come back in. And importantly, your job is more than just calling balls and strikes or vote counting and making a recommendation to the senior editor. You should, look through the reviews carefully, make sure there is no political commentary or anything that, seems overly harsh in the reviews. Synthesize those reviews and then make a recommendation to the senior editor. When you're in Manuscript Central, you'll see that there are 2 boxes. One box for you to provide feedback to the senior editor, and that advice or recommendation is confidential. The authors will never see that. And this is really where you should say what you think to the senior editor. Then you also provide feedback to the authors. Now, as I said, we're trying to be ruthlessly efficient. If you decide that paper, will stay in the system and get either major revisions or minor revisions, the authors might resubmit that paper back to us. And at least at Journal of Animal Ecology, we really want associate editors to be able to make a decision at that point so that they don't have to go out and ask again for further review. Sometimes it may be the case that there's some specialized technique or statistic that you really need to get someone else's eyes on. You can send the paper back out to them. But at least at Animal Ecology, we really want to focus on having associate editors make a recommendation on revised papers rather than sending them back out for review again. I think you all know what happens when a paper is either rejected or accepted. At least at most of the journals, I think this isn't true for Applied Ecology. You should also know that you do not have to sign your reviews. So you should feel free to be frank in your feedback to the authors because you don't have to sign your reviews. They will never know it's you who handled their papers. And so I think I'll stop there just to allow more time for others and more time for questions at the end. But that's a brief overview of the peer review process for the BES journals. Thanks.
Hello. So now like it's my turn. I'll talk about like making an initial assessment. I have a slide. I don't know if you have it or I can go without slide. Yeah. So if it is like the first time doing this job, it could be pretty like intimidating, no? But you must know that if we pick you, it's because like we are like really sure that you can do this job and that you are the expert. Like we assign you papers because we believe that you can do like a good job with them and that you like know enough about them. Sometimes like papers will be like in your area of like expertise, but sometimes like the topic will be like slightly outside of your comfort zone, no? Like, and this is like I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of like like imposter syndrome, but like many of you, like at least like it was my case, like with the first papers, I feel like an imposter there. Why I'm doing this? Like who I am to do this? But if we pick you, it's because we are sure that you can do like a great job. So even if the topic is a bit of outside of your comfort zone, please do that. Of course, like if you're really like comfortable or you know like too little to handle the paper, like please like tell like senior editors about this. But typically, like, we expect you to handle papers even if it is not in your like direct area of expertise. Like you should keep in mind that the boards are huge. We have like many editors, but like many take vacations or have problems. They cannot handle papers. So like you may be the best person in the board to handle these papers. So like I consider like taking papers that are not in your direct area of expertise. How to do this like initial assessment? There are basically 3 points that perhaps like you need to explore. And this is like personally, like we are all different, but like what they do like first is assess the scope. Like if this paper like fits like in the niche of the journal, you know, like, don't assume that because a senior editor sent it to you, like the journal belong there. Maybe like a problem with the scope. You know, for example, like in journal of like Applied Ecology, where I work as an we are really like into like applied science. So like if the paper is not applied, like doesn't belong there. Then like you should see the methods, like the design of the experiment, the data, the analysis that they do, like proper, like for a journal, for example, like obvious problem, like has sample size of 1. Like if methods or design is not appropriate, also like the paper like doesn't belong there, and then like check for the results and the conclusions. No, like it's not rare to see a paper that has like pretty amazing like title, like awesome abstract, like sells the paper really well, but then you go to the results, and the results do not like back up the claims, no, or the results are really weak. So all these things like will like so like you need to test reject like those papers, no, by test reject I mean like without sending them to review. And so like we expect you like in some cases to do that. So like, I don't be afraid like of the reject papers that don't belong in the journal. Like something like as a personal thing, like I never send papers out that I think that don't belong in the journal. So like if I'm sure that a paper like should not be published in the journal, I'll never send it out like for review. Something it happened to me. I learned this like hard way. I send papers out like for review, and then I get like reviews that are really positive. You know, like so I say, oh my god, like this paper is wrong. I know this wrong, and reviewers are not catching the mistake that I saw. So like, what do I do? So like you end up like rejecting a paper that have positive reviews, which typically upsets a lot the authors. So I try to not do that. When you reject, please like be clear on why you are doing that. They tend to be like constructive, and of course like be like really like respectful. No, like the authors put a lot of time to make submissions, so like we need to be like as nice and respectful for them. Of course, it's a rejection. It's hard, but that doesn't mean that we need to be unpolite or too cruel with them. No, there's a part like with private comments to the senior editor where we can put there like more direct comments, say, hey, like this paper is not like not novel, or the methods are like really bad. We are there like too many like similar papers, like all reasons, like we can be like about like a lot more like direct and clear with the senior editor. So yeah. So like also like something that I try to avoid, that I see many like young editors like do, is to send papers back to authors without like reviewers comment. No, for example, like you read the paper and you find problems with the some graph that is not clear, the methods are not clear, or something that can be improved, and you send them like without reviewers comment, asking them to change things before the papers go out of peer review. I try to avoid that, because you'll be surprised of the different problems that reviewers find, no? So perhaps you find a problem and reviewer find like a different problem. So like the paper is rejected like 4 months later, for no reason, no? So like if you find like a core problem, for example, that the figures are missing in the paper, no? Like there's a problem with the PDF, or the English is really bad that you cannot read it. It's okay to send it back to authors, like, and asking them to make changes. But typically, if it's something that you think that they can change and the reviewers will also find, like send it out like for review. I don't need to add this like extra month of work that really delays the process. You should know that I will make some mistakes like in the process. Like we all make mistakes, but the idea is to learn with the mistakes. No, like so like if like, I don't feel too bad if you make some mistake, but yeah, of course, like we should learn from them. Yeah, this is yeah. So I try to be like as brief as possible here, so like we can like have like more time for questions. Thank you.
So it's my turn. So, fantastic reviewers and where to find them or how to invite them. These are big question that I asked before I started like this associate editor in Journal of Applied Ecology. So just to kickstart, that BES has provided us like a really good guideline on how to engage with reviewers. So like some common rule, if you want to invite like 2 reviewers, you usually invite like a 4 to 5 reviewers. It's just a statistic. Like no, usually like people don't really accept. Not everyone can accept your invitation. We have Scholar Manuscript Central system, which is great to find like a recommendation for the reviewers. Also, like usually, like the author also give us like recommendation for the reviewers, which you could select. And the cool thing is like they will let you know if there's a potential conflict of interest. For example, the reviewer is actually like a part of the authors, or like they work closely with the authors for the paper that you are handling. So you could read that in the guidelines. And what I would like to share at the moment is kind of like more about like my personal experience in handling and inviting the reviewers, which I would like to share to you, and you might find it like maybe useful. This is something that I keep learning and will keep learning. So first of all, the most important thing, if you want to invite a reviewer, everyone is busy. We all reviewer, we know that. We are super busy. So I would really kind of like emphasize like we appreciate their time and contribution, and we give them a reason when we invite the reviewers, like why they are the expert reviewers for this paper. The way I do that, I usually send a personalized email. So instead using the template email, I usually send a really kind of like, hey, I hope you are well. Just FYI, I read this paper. I usually read the paper first, of course. And I think like you are the expert for this review. I usually make something kind of like, I read your article, this title, from this journal. I think you will be a good reviewer for this one. Hey, I saw your talk at BES annual meeting last year, and I think you will be great reviewer for this one. I've been following your work, and I know you are the expert for this topic. Even though sometimes like the paper is not really like maybe the paper is about bats, and they are not working on bats, but they develop the method that the paper is using. You could tell them the reason. And I think that's really important in a way that like I want to give them a reason that we invite them because of this reason, because you are the expert. And I found it really helpful when I write the personalized email. Usually people tend to accept the invite. The second one would be like where to find these reviewers. I mentioned this before. We have a manuscript central. Usually the author also provided us like the list of reviewer. I usually invite 1 or 2 from that side from that list, and usually I look for other like sources. So use your network. Ask a friend of a friend. Ask your friend is fine. If you know they are the expert, I think it's when you know someone, it's easier to tell them why you want to invite them as a reviewer, because you know they are the expert of this particular topic. Google Scholar is so easy. I usually also look at Journal of Applied Ecology or like BES, like a website, a journal website in general to see. Because usually people who publish in our journal will tend to review the papers submitted into our journal also. So that would be helpful. And I would say do a little bit of Googling, which is important because email change all the time, especially when they are PhD student, when they are postdoc who only have a temporary like contract, they usually change. I usually see if it's Gmail, personal email, they are more likely to be active. But like if it's institutional email, I always check whether they changed the institution or not. So Google will help for that to find the reviewer and also make sure like they still active the email when you invite them. Third one would be I always try to invite people or reviewers from different career stage and also different regions. By career stage, I invite professor, but I usually know I mean like Nate, for example, or Martin, they handling like 400 submission every year, so they are busy. But I usually invite professors, and I kind of like always emphasize that I know you are busy. But I would appreciate if you could recommend maybe your postdoc or your student who might be interested in this one, or if you want to do co-review with your students. And usually they accept that. Um, I always try to invite ECR, early career researcher, postdoc, PhD, and you will be surprised that like some people kind of say like, oh, PhD, I invite my friends. Some of my friends, they are PhD student and they say like, oh, I don't think I'm an expert for this one. I say like, you are the expert. I follow your work. And they turn up, give like the best, one of the best review I ever accepted. And sometimes if they are not really confident enough, I told them like, oh yeah, you could kind of like co-review with your supervisor if they are available and they want to help you. And I think that that's kind of like a good like learning process for them. So ECR is a really good like Google, you will find them whether they are like a ECR or not. The last one, I will always try to invite people in the region where the study is conducted, just because I believe like they know much more about the system and the situation in that area. And when you send a personalized email, like it gives you more reason why you want to invite them, because you have like a clear reason why they are the expert. Fourth, I will say I'm seeing this as a not only invite reviewer, but it's more as a collaboration. So I would like to make sure like the reviewer are keep in the loop. Like I keep follow up with them, inform them about like the progress. I always send like personal thank you email, especially like when they give like really good reviews. I just kind of like I really appreciate your review. It's so amazing. It's really helpful. And just give a personal touch would be very helpful, I think, because I can see like this is not only about a transactional peer review process, but also like it's about building network, collaborating with these people, because who knows, you might work with them in the future. And the last one I would say, just ask question. If you have any question, you could ask like the editors, the US senior editor. You could ask Lydia, Harriet about anything that you might have a question. So to recap, reviewer are busy, and we need to make sure we appreciate their time and contribution. So give them a reason when you invite them. I usually use personalized email. Use Google to make sure to find like the reviewers that you think will be a good fit for the paper, and also make sure like they still have an active email. I always try to invite people from all career stage and also the region of where the study is conducted. And finally, see them as a collaborator and help them to kind of like really appreciate like all their contribution. And lastly, ask question. If you have anything in that, just ask question. You could ask question also in the chat now. So yeah, that's all for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was really cool also for me to listen. I'm an associate editor in Ecological Solutions and Evidence. And I'll talk about making recommendations, sectioned into assessing reviewer comments, write them as you like to receive them, which is really important, and also adjusting comments for the senior editor versus the authors, because we want to make some distinctions there. But for the first step about assessing reviewer comments, of course, you want to have read the paper before you send it out for peer review. But then when you receive the review reports, it's probably a good idea to reread the paper. Usually there's been several weeks in between, or even more, depending on the pace of the process for that particular manuscript. But then it's a bit up to you. Do you want to reread the paper and sort of reassess yourself? What are the weaknesses? What are the strengths? And then read the review reports, or vice versa. So you can find a bit what's more comfortable or what makes more sense for you. But I usually reread the paper and just make some notes for me, and then I read the review reports and try to see how they fit into what I found about the manuscript. And then for the reviewer comments, it's important to, I think Nate said that quite nicely. It's not about averaging sort of the scores of the review reports, but about evaluating the reviews and synthesizing them. So we're not just collecting votes, but we make a decision based on the recommendations or on the advice of the reviewers. So you can ask yourself, did the reviewer understand the manuscript? Are the suggestions and the critique or the feedback, are they reasonable? Are those reasonable demands? Are they feasible? And do they also fit into the scope of the journal? So all in all, you wanna assess the quality of the review and not just its positivity towards the manuscript. So how positive is the reviewer? Do they like the manuscript? But really also about the quality of the review. Did they cover all aspects of the manuscript from, nowadays you often want to go check, as a reviewer, you want to go check the data and the code. Did they do that, or is that something that should still be done? Can you do it as an associate editor, or do you want to ask for additional review reports for specific gaps that have been left open? And then lastly, maybe regarding the reviewer comments, it's also about how much the reviewers agree. You could receive reports where they seem quite going into different directions. One reviewer might actually really like the manuscript and have a rather short report, and the other reviewer might be more critical and have a very long report. But there, it's maybe also about reading in between the lines. You might find that even the short report actually has a similar kind of feedback as compared to the long report, and there it's about finding common things or common topics where the authors should focus on in their revision. And yeah, if you have the impression that not everything was covered, then of course you as an associate editor could also read the paper again in a little more detail. And it's not about like adding a full review report yourself, but just trying to fill in the gaps. And then about writing the recommendation, I was asked to talk about write them as you like to receive them, and I think that sort of sums it up already. So really try to be respectful and kind, and critique the manuscript and not the authors when you write your report as an associate editor. And also think that whatever you write, and that will most likely then be sent to the authors, it's also shaping the perception of the journal's culture that the authors receive. So it's also your responsibility to sort of upkeep this quality. Yeah, and I think that's well, of course, it's not just for you what you write, but I think it has been said before already that also check the tone of the review reports. If you think that there's something rude and disrespectful or something political, as Nate stated, then maybe contact the senior editor and flag that. And then about adjusting the comments for senior editors versus your comments to the authors. So for the authors, as I said, you want to be constructive, clear. Those should be actionable comments, and synthesizing the reviewers, especially. You want to, especially if you think that some reviewer comments are maybe not that useful or important or sensible, you want to help with your decision letter the authors to find what they should focus on in their revision. So whatever you write, it should really guide the authors what they should focus on in their revision. And then to the senior editor, you can be more candid about your judgment and whatever kind of concerns you might have about the manuscript, or even the reviewer reports. You can write that there. And you could also, or you should include your recommendation into the comment to the senior editor, and not necessarily directly to the authors. And I think that's in line with whether you want to sign it with your name or not. That might be up to the journal. Yeah, and I think that's it for that part.
Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us, and glad to see so many people. I want to start with just sort of reiterating something that was said before, that please contact senior editors. So I'm a senior editor for Functional Ecology. If you go to the next slide, that'd be awesome. So I'm a senior editor for Functional Ecology, and I really, really welcome all of you to be in constant contact. And if you have any questions, especially early on, just reach out to the senior editors. We are all more than happy to communicate and talk about any issues that come up. So I'm going to talk about handling revisions, which is pretty, I think, straightforward, and I'll try to be fairly quick. And then I'm going to go over some kind of special situations that might arise. So first, when you get a revision as an associate editor, you want to obviously assess whether or not they have addressed all of the comments and suggestions from the reviewers, especially the ones that seemed significant and that you also felt were really important. If they don't address the comments, if they just kind of try to resubmit without doing very much, then it's your place to decide that maybe it should be rejected at that point. This next point is kind of specific maybe to functional ecology, because I know other journals don't feel the same way necessarily, but if a reviewer had major concerns, I would encourage an associate editor to send it back to that reviewer, at least to get a quick assessment to see if the authors did address their major concerns. I feel that some reviewers do appreciate getting a second look at things. That said, it is it's your decision whether or not you want to do that. You are more than free to just make the decision without sending it back to any of the reviewers. One thing I know some associate editors don't realize is that it is perfectly fine to reject a paper even after revision, even if it was just major revision or even minor revision. That's probably rare, but if it's major revision and they don't address the concerns, or if it doesn't seem like it's up to the standard of the journal, you can reject it after revision. It's just really important to provide an explanation at that point, because I think some authors feel that, okay, major revision means that it's going to be accepted, and some might be a bit offended if their paper gets rejected at that point. So it's just really important to explain why. And we have gotten some associate editors that may not provide much information, and so you just want to really make sure that you uphold that standard of kind of explaining why the paper is ultimately rejected. The idea of finding additional reviewers if initial ones are unavailable is quite rare, because you don't really want to bring in a new reviewer at this stage, but in some cases it might be required. So you might have a really major revision or even a reject with resubmission, where that initial reviewer that was really critical might be doing field work for the next 3 months. And so you might want another pair of eyes to take a look at it. And in that case, it's okay to contact a whole brand new reviewer. Of course, the authors might not be so happy because new things might come up at that point. But we're trying to make sure that the papers that are published are of highest quality. So that might be a requirement. Appeals can happen. I think received 3 appeals in the last year. So it's not really common. It's very rare. But if I receive an appeal, I might contact you as an associate editor to maybe give a little bit more feedback regarding the rejection, to maybe work through how we might communicate the decision, or if we would like to accept an appeal. It's important for me, at least, to contact the associate editor to make sure that they're okay if we actually allow them to resubmit, even though it was rejected. Resubmissions are also common. So one of the options is to reject the paper with resubmission allowed. And so that is sort of the case where the paper probably won't be accepted, but we'll give them a chance in case they can maybe collect that extra piece of data, or if they can do something. So you kind of have to assess it kind of the same as a major revision, but just be really careful if it's a reject with resubmission allowed, just to really make sure that the paper has addressed the really critical points of the reviewers. It's not uncommon, as already mentioned, to get mixed reviews. So you might get one that completely thinks it should be rejected and one that thinks it should be accepted immediately. That's, of course, quite rare to have them polarized that much. In that case, it's often just rejected. But if you feel like you would like more information, it is okay to go with and ask a third reviewer to maybe help solve that. Or you can kind of step in and really be a third reviewer without being a third reviewer. And, that's where your expertise is really important, and you can make that decision. I've had several cases recently where an associate editor just can't find reviewers. Like, we can send 20, 30 invitations and you might get one reviewer, right? That's the challenge you will be facing very rarely, but it does happen. In that case, you might only get a single review, and you might have to be stepping up as being kind of the second reviewer in that case, and just proceed without having a massive delay with these manuscripts. The other issue is that you might invite 3 or 4 at a time if it seems like it's really difficult to get reviewers. And in that magical time, you might get 3 that all accept the paper to review. And so you might have to then have the luxury of 3 reviews coming in instead of just 2, which is also fine. And so I've already addressed what happens when you get a single review. You can either just kind of review it yourself at that point, or keep on looking for another reviewer. So I'll stop there because I want to make sure you have time to ask questions. But again, I'll reiterate, please just reach out to senior editors if you have any question. If you're really worried about what to do, just don't sit with that. Just contact a senior editor and ask.
Thanks very much for that, Tim. Hi everyone, I'm Lydia. I'm the Senior Assistant Editor on Journal of Applied Ecology. I'm just going to run you through quickly some kind of commonly asked questions that the editorial office or the senior editor team receive quite a lot of, to hopefully kind of guide you on your journey as an associate editor. So the first one we've got is, what should I do if I'm unavailable? So this could be that you're planning to go on holiday, you're going to be in the field, or you're just feeling a bit overwhelmed with a few too many papers to handle during, a busy time. In this instance, there's just a couple of steps to take. So firstly, please let your assistant editor / the editorial office, which is the BES staff working on that journal, know that you are planning to be away. You can find this email on Scholar One or on our Associate Editor Support Centre. And this will be the person who's been contacting you so far in relation to getting you onboarded as an associate editor. It's completely okay to contact us for sort of any reason in terms of not being available. And we'd much rather that you speak to us kind kind of as soon as you can, rather than leaving a manuscript kind of partway through, because this obviously causes delays for the authors in receiving feedback on their work. And then secondly, you can also update your availability dates on the Scholar One system. So as you can see on the slide, you just need to be logged in. You need to click on your name, which is in the top right-hand corner. Click on user ID and password. And then once that page is loaded up, you can just scroll down to the unavailable dates section. And you can see there's like a little calendar icon. You can just click that and put your dates in and save that. And the editorial office will be able to access that. So we'll know if you're planning to not be here. Next slide, please. So what should you do if you receive a paper that isn't in your subject area? So this was spoken about a little bit earlier, but essentially this does occasionally happen. The senior editors very much try their best not to deliberately give you something way out of your sort of expertise. But the first thing to do is to have a quick check over the assignment email. So sometimes a senior editor might purposefully assign you something that is a little out of your usual sort of wheelhouse, and that usually is for a very specific reason. So for example, I'm not actually an ecologist, I'm a geographer, but if I was an ecologist, I might say that my expertise is in freshwater ecosystems, and I might receive a paper that is about soil ecology and originally be quite confused as to why this had sort of landed on my desk. But I might find upon checking that email from the senior editor that they are asking me to look at something very specific. So there could be a specific method or technique used in that paper, such as modelling, which has been kind of applied in a different context, and that's what they'd like you to kind of focus on. So it's always worth having a look at that and discussing with the senior editor if you've got any sort of concerns. If there is nothing in that sort of assignment email and you're pretty certain it definitely doesn't fall within your expertise, then please contact the editorial office as soon as you can. And we can essentially just assign a new associate editor as soon as possible to sort of avoid any delays with the peer review process and again, getting that feedback to the author. The best way to kind of just summarize this process is that you should sort of consider any manuscript you're assigned, think of it as if it were your own manuscript. So if you'd gone and submitted a paper to a different journal and you'd been waiting a good few weeks and you found out it'd been basically sitting on someone's desk and not really going anywhere, you'd obviously feel a bit disappointed. So it's kind of just treating things in that same way. Next slide, please. So what if you see something that seems inappropriate? Again, this was sort of touched on earlier, but we do, occasionally have things crop up. So the sort of overarching theme, once more, is to please flag anything to the editorial office and also to the senior editor who is overseeing that manuscript. We do ask that you sort of keep an eye out for anything that might not seem quite right. And if in doubt, just let us know, even if you're not sure whether it's kind of worth flagging or not. And you can see on the slide, we've got some examples there. So this could be related to something like suspected AI use in a manuscript or in a review that hasn't been disclosed. We will send around some more information after this, so I think next week, on our sort of AI policy, just so you kind of know what to look out for a bit more. But essentially, just to summarize it, we ask like reviewers not to input a manuscript into AI because this is obviously not abiding by the sort of confidentiality agreement that a reviewer essentially makes. You can also look out for any sort of offensive language or political opinions in reviews. Again, this doesn't happen a lot, but we just ask you to flag this if you do see anything that doesn't seem quite right. And then similarly, if you have any reason to believe that a manuscript may have already been published or it's undergoing review simultaneously with a different journal, then let us know. Can also flag any concerns around ethical standards. So particularly when it comes to studies involving animals, if you think they haven't said anything about sort of any sort of ethical procedures they've gone through, and it's something particularly invasive. And then lastly, most of our journals do operate on a double anonymous peer review system. And while we do kind of make every effort to make sure that those manuscripts are assigned to you, and they've already been sort of anonymized, very occasionally things do slip through. The editorial office does try, but we are only human, so we might miss the odd name or identifying information somewhere. So if you just let us know if you do spot this, and we can go in and correct this. And just quickly, none of these examples are kind of meant to put you off or scare you. It's just a reminder to basically remain vigilant and alert us if anything does seem a little bit off. Next slide, please. And then one of the last things we have is, what should I do if I receive two conflicting reviews? Again, this was mentioned earlier, so I'll just go through it quite quickly. But you might occasionally find yourself in this situation. You might receive a review that is very positive, that recommends minor revision or even acceptance. And then you might receive another that's recommending major revision or rejection. And it can be a little bit confusing initially. So essentially, we would just ask you to kind of read through those reviews really carefully, weigh up that feedback, and kind of try to form your own opinion on the best route forwards for that manuscript. So you should try to avoid, where possible, sending to a third reviewer as a sort of default, because ultimately we'd prefer you to feel confident enough to kind of make that recommendation yourself, to kind of go into that role of critically evaluating those reviews, and sort of avoid, I think it was Nate said, avoid the practice of vote counting. If you don't feel able to do that, that's completely fine. You can reach out to the senior editor and the editorial office for sort of guidance, and we'll be able to give you some more sort of tailored advice on a more of a case-by-case basis. And I would say don't worry too much, because as is the case for every single manuscript that you will receive as an associate editor, the senior editors ultimately make that final decision. So if they see something in your recommendation, like you've written in your comments for the editor's box, for example, and you've sort of justified your thoughts on something, if they see something that they might want to have a bit more of a conversation with you about, or they think you might need to sort of slightly alter something, they'll let you know, and you can kind of discuss that between you. Next slide, please. And then the very last thing from me is a very broad question of, how do I use Scholar One? So Scholar One, as you will all know, is our manuscript handling system. And we do completely understand that it can be a little bit sort of clunky initially to wrap your head around. So we do have a few different training videos on our Associate Editor Support Centre. So you can see on the slide there, we have videos on finding and actioning new assignments, inviting reviewers, and submitting a recommendation. So this kind of covers all of the key tasks that you'll need within your associate editor role. You can also find a bit more guidance and sort of tips and tricks in your journal's associate editor handbook, which I think you should have been sent already via email, but it is also on your associate editor support centre, so you can download it and access it at any time. But as always, please do reach out if you have any questions with handling manuscripts. We appreciate that it takes a little bit of practice with Scholar One, and you might just want to come to us if you have any queries, especially of your first few that you're handling. And that is it from us in terms of the presentation. We've got a few minutes left, so I suppose we could go to some questions if people have anything they want to ask us. I think quite a lot of the chat things have been answered already. But if anyone wants to put their microphone on and just ask, then I'm sure one of us, including the editors, will be able to help you out.
Lydia, do you want to say anything about how associate editors might or might not use AI?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So I have a question.
So
Okay, sorry.
I'll just quickly do the AI and then we'll come back. Yeah, so in terms of associate editors themselves using AI, you can, so essentially it's like I said earlier, you can't go and upload a manuscript into an AI platform, because that's kind of breaching the confidentiality sort of agreements, and we ultimately don't know where that data will end up and how it'll be used to train different models, etc. What you can do is, say you've written up your recommendation, you could go and put that in just to sort of clean up your language a bit and help with like grammar, things like that. So you can use it in the context of sort of improving the recommendation, but not to sort of generate new things. Because we ultimately need that recommendation to come from you and your own expertise. We do sort of as a kind of best practice, if you do put it into an AI tool to kind of help clean it up a bit, then I think generally we'd recommend just adding that into the confidential comments to editors box, just so that we're aware. It's not going to be like held against you. It's just because things can get flagged, and it makes it a bit simpler on our end. Sorry, we can go back to the question now.
Yeah, my question is related with the author's contribution. Sometimes it is not clear that much. So how the journal will take in that? It will reject paper based if it is not clear, or it proceed for the revision process if the author's contribution is not clear in the manuscript.
So, sorry. So you mean like if the in terms of what each author has done sort of individually?
Sometimes it looks like there is a bias in the author's contribution section area, and it is sometimes PhD and postdocs publish the article, write an article manuscript, and just they don't give any credit to other any authors, and they make their own as a corresponding author of that paper without giving it. So in that condition, how the journal looks that that part that reject the paper or will forward the paper for the review process.
I think it would, someone might have a bit more detail here to sort of input, but I would think it would probably kind of operate on a very case by case basis. So in terms of the kind of, the contributions of sort of different authors and things, we do ask that, especially if a paper has been accepted for publication, we do ask that there is a author contribution statement that very clearly outlines what every single author has done, and we don't allow anyone to sort of just say all authors have da 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 da. They have to put every single name and very much sort of signpost what everyone has done. So in that way, we kind of look out to perhaps sort of protect against this sort of thing. I don't know if anyone has any sort of specific examples in terms of editors, but that would be my general answer. But yeah, if there were concerns, I would definitely raise it with us, and we'd be able to look into it on more of that case by case basis. Hannah, I think you're next.
Yeah, thanks. Maybe just coming back to the AI thing, because I know it will be probably something that becomes more and more common both in manuscripts as well as in review comments. So I was just wondering if there are any general guidelines on AI, how we should address it as associate editors.
Yeah, so we've got our policy that like I mentioned earlier, we'll send round to everyone. It's a very tricky one because it can be very, very difficult to sort of spot AI and know for definite if something has been generated by AI. I've just come back to the same point really about if you do have any concerns, just let us know. Let the senior editor know and the editorial office know, and we will go and look into that kind of separately and can let you know kind of what comes out of that. We have, like many journals, had a few cases of sort of suspected AI, which have, sometimes has been correct, sometimes hasn't. And I think it is a very tricky one to kind of make a definitive judgment on. So yeah, we do kind of just try to look at it each very sort of individually per case and see what we can do to let people know what our guidelines are and make sure they are following those. Chris, I think you're next.
Yeah, I mean, simple question, but I have an A role at a different journal, and a common thing that you deal with is reviewers are overdue with their reviews. I just wanted to know, like, what's, the obvious thing is send gentle reminders, but like, are there hard deadlines, formal guidance on, reviewers who have said they take a paper on and then go no contact? How do you handle these?
Yeah, so we again, like many journals, we do see that happening now and then. And so generally when you send a invitation to a reviewer, the kind of standard deadline is 2 weeks. But we do have in the invitations emails, we do make it quite clear that the reviewer can contact the editorial office to have that extended if they need to. So I'd recommend, I mean, Ardian might be a good person to add some information on this, but I'd recommend putting in that invitation email, like just making it really clear to them, like when you sort of personalize it a bit, saying, oh, you know, let me know if you need a month, for example, and that's completely fine. In terms of the actual sticking to the deadlines, the editorial office goes in once or twice a week, and we do go through reviewers that are sort of overdue submitting their review, and we do email them ourselves to try and keep on top of that. Yeah, so we try our best, and generally that isn't too much of an issue, but we'll try and communicate with you if there are any sort of issues with that.
To add Lydia comment also, kind of like at the manuscript central, it's not perfect, but if you kind of like pick the reviewer name, like usually I check like they have a detail whether they already review, how many reviews they have done in the last 1 year, and usually like how many paper that has been assigned, but they never return the review. So if I see that, it's kind of like already like I'm not gonna pick this reviewer. So it's quite a good one to kind of like check whether the reviewers return the review or not.
Very good advice there, Ardian.
One comment on
And you
this,
got Martin.
Yeah, Chris, like speed is super important, but quality like is more important. So like if we need to wait for someone, like wait for someone. Like don't rush decisions to fulfill like a deadline. Like time is super important, and authors like expect us to be quick. But like if we make mistakes, it's much worse than being late.
Yeah, and just to add on that, just let us know if you're finding it particularly difficult, and we can try and sort of help where possible, and maybe ask the author for some more ideas for reviewers, for example. I'm aware that we're sort of on at time now, so I'm just going to wrap up and again say a massive thank you from us for everyone who's attended and sort of signed up to join our editorial boards. As a society, we very, very much rely on our associate editors to sort of uphold our high standards for the journals. So we do extend sort of sincere gratitude to everyone for being here and choosing to join us. So just as a very quick reminder, this has been recorded, and we will send it around to you, I think, next week. And you should also be receiving sort of in the next few weeks your first manuscripts to handle sort of as and when something suitable becomes available. If you do have any sort of burning questions, please do contact your journal's assistant editor/editorial office, and we will try and get back to you as soon as we can with an answer. But thank you again, and we look forward to working with you all.